All right, welcome. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating. This idea of a hidden mathematical code, a cipher that's supposedly woven into the very fabric of the Quran. Now, this theory, based on the work of thinkers like Tamujani Yusuf, suggests that the Holy Book is way more than just a text. It's more like a structured, divine program. So think about this for a second. You see these numbers pop up again and again in the Quran. You have 114 chapters. Exactly 25 prophets are named. You hear about 7 heavens. The big question, the one that really drives this whole theory, is pretty simple. Are these just random numbers, or is there something much more deliberate, something hidden going on behind the scenes?
So for this explainer, we're going to approach this as if we're trying to solve a divine mathematical puzzle. Our goal here isn't to prove it or debunk it. It's really just to understand the claims about this hidden code, exactly as the source material lays them out.
Now, there's actually a name for this core concept. It's called Ijaz ad-Adi, which basically translates to numerical miracles. The whole theory is that these super intricate patterns of numbers, they're not just there for decoration. No, they're meant to be a kind of mathematical signature, a proof, or so the proponents argue, that the text could only have a divine, non-human author.
And this quote right here, it just nails the absolute heart of the theory. The idea is that, you know how the universe itself seems to run on mathematical laws? From the perfect spiral of a galaxy all the way down to the petals on a flower? Well, the claim is that the Quran reflects that exact same cosmic order in its own structure. It's presented as a sacred text, but one that's written in the universal language of math.
Okay, so if we're going to talk about the Quran as a divine program, then what are its key variables? What are the codes? Well, the theory points to a few specific recurring numbers as the main clues that supposedly unlock this whole deeper structure. First up, we've got the number 7. According to the theory, you just can't ignore how often it shows up. You see it in descriptions of the 7 heavens, and maybe the most important example, the Quran's very first chapter, Al-Fatiha, which is often called the mother of the book. It has exactly 7 verses. This is seen as a major clue, a foundational piece of the puzzle. Next on the list is the number 25. Now, why 25? The theory highlights that this is the precise number of prophets who are explicitly named in the Quran. It's not 24, it's not 26, it's exactly 25. And proponents argue that this kind of specificity isn't a coincidence. It's another one of those deliberate numerical clues. And here we go. This is probably the most famous part of the whole theory, the Code of 19. The logic is laid out in 3 simple steps. First, the number 19 is actually mentioned right there in the text. Second, we know the Quran has a total of 114 chapters, or surahs. And third, and this is the real kicker, these 2 numbers are linked by a super clean, elegant calculation. 114 is a perfect multiple of 19. It's 19 times 6. For believers in this theory, that connection is a cornerstone of the whole mathematical structure. Now, this is where it gets really, really interesting. The theory argues that these numbers, 7, 25, 19, they're not just isolated little fun facts. It actually tries to weave them all together into this big, coherent framework that it calls the Pentagon System. And this is where the model starts to get much more detailed. So the Pentagon System kicks off by connecting 2 key numbers, 5 and 25. The theory links the number 5, of course, to the 5 pillars of Islam. Then it points out that the number of named prophets, 25, is exactly 5 squared. As you can see right here, this relationship is often shown as a 5 by 5 grid, which creates this beautiful symbolic link between the basic pillars of the faith and the entire line of prophets. Proponents call this a map of oneness, meant to show this deep, underlying harmony.
And it doesn't even stop there. The theory then expands this whole concept of 5 into what it calls a multi-dimensional system. As you can see, it claims to integrate 5 totally distinct aspects of the faith. It starts with faith, the pillars, then practice, the 5 daily prayers, and prophecy with the 25 prophets. But then the model even gets extended to include these symbolic layers of poetry and geometry. It's pretty ambitious.
The theory also comes up with these transition calculations to show how all the key numbers are connected. For instance, check this out. It takes the 25 prophets and subtracts the oneness code of 19. The logic they give is to see what's left when you factor out the core concept of God's oneness from the line of prophecy. The answer is 6. And what does the theory connect that to? The 6 articles of faith in Islam. This equation is presented as this perfect mathematical bridge between prophecy and creed.
Okay, so obviously a huge claim like this is going to invite a lot of skepticism. It just has to. So to really get the full picture, we've got to look at the common objections that get raised against this theory and, just as importantly, the answers that its supporters offer in response. So probably the most common objection you hear is, come on, this is just numerology. You know, the good old human brain finding patterns where there's just random data. But the theory's proponents push back. They argue it's not about telling fortunes. They see it as a form of scientific proof. And they even point to verses they say encourage this kind of investigation. Then there's the other big question: why would God even use math? And the response they offer is that math is the universal language of creation. So it makes perfect sense that a divine text would have the same precision that governs, say, the sun and the moon.
And that really brings us to the final and most essential question, which we're just going to leave with you. After looking at all these claims, what are we really looking at here? Is this a genuine divine miracle that's been encoded in numbers? Is it a fascinating, incredibly complex pattern that the human mind has either discovered or maybe even created? Or perhaps is its greatest value something else entirely? Maybe it's a new key, a totally new lens for a deeper kind of reflection on a sacred text. The answer? Well, that ultimately lies in what you decide to take away from it all.